Tiffany is an energy healer, astrologer, and alignment guide with a mission to help individuals heal emotional wounds, elevate their self-worth, and live in harmony with their true purpose. In addition to her one-on-one healing work, Tiffany is a passionate speaker, podcast host, and soon-to-be published author. She combines energy healing, astrology, and spiritual wisdom to guide people through transformational journeys, clearing emotional blocks from past experiences and empowering them to step into their authentic power. Tiffany's work is rooted in love, self-connection, and helping others align with their highest potential. And today in this conversation, we talked a lot about forgiveness. We talked about forgiving yourself. We talked about forgiving others. We talked about the emotions behind forgiving ourselves and how underneath those surface level emotions, it really all leads back to love and how love is kind of this equilibrium that we are always drawn back to throughout our life of this, life is a full package deal. We're going to feel all of the emotions. And in between all of the ups and downs, we are always being called back to love and we are always being called back home. And we talked about self-love and really truly accepting all parts of yourself and how that is a really great tool to really deepen all of your relationships. And I really love this conversation. I love all of my conversations with Tiffany. I have recorded already an episode with her on her podcast. Her podcast is called, let me pull that up for you all. I will also be linking it in the show notes. Let's see. Just want to make sure I get the name correct because I have it in my mind, but I think it's Alchemy of Abundance, but I just want to be sure. Yes, Alchemy of Abundance. So I've already recorded an episode with Tiffany on her show, Alchemy of Abundance. I'm not sure if it's live yet as of the time of this episode dropping. And so this has been like my second sit down conversation with her. And as I am recording this intro, I have another conversation with her for her show in like 4 days. And I feel like we really get into this flow where we end up going so deep to this point where it becomes hard to put into words what we are describing. But if you listen, you know what we are talking about because you can feel it. And that may or may not make sense as you listen to this intro. But I guess what I'll say is this conversation is really an invitation for you to get curious. Get curious about your own self and how your own self really is connected to everyone around you, because that separation of I versus other people is really an illusion. And I know I'm getting real woo-woo with this intro, but I'm a woo-woo girl. Sorry, not sorry. And I hope that this episode really helps you step into deeper self-love, deeper self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, forgiving others, and all of those magical things. So without further ado, please enjoy this episode and conversation with Tiffany O'Hearn. I love that. That's a really good one. Good for grounding. I'm recording already.
Perfect.
Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen. On this podcast, we talk about self-love, relationships, sexuality, spirituality, and more. Hi, I am your host, Cilia Antonio, and I am a relationship and sexuality coach for ambitious women with a history of toxic relationships who desire to reconnect to their sensuality and who desire to feel worthy of receiving healthy love. I celebrate you for hitting play on today's episode. I hope that you find this very supportive and helpful. And if you could show some support to the podcast by hitting subscribe on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, wherever it is that you are listening to or watching this episode, it would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's dive into today's episode. Thank you, Tiffany, for being here. I'm very excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor. Thank you.
You're welcome. I would love to know, before we dive into our conversation today, what is it like to be you today? What are some of the maybe themes that are going through your life, lessons that are coming up, or anything that you feel comfortable sharing along those lines?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I'm really happy to answer it too, because I love challenging things like that, right? So, this year for me has really been a challenging one and beautiful all
Mm,
at the same time, right? Because as much as we have challenges, there's such a beauty and honor within them, and I think oftentimes we kind of dismiss it, right? And so, something for me that's been really powerful and has really helped, probably around June or July of this year, was spending time being in gratitude even when
mm.
it feels hard. And I'm divorced. So being in gratitude for my ex, right? Because I
Oh,
wouldn't be the person that I am now, you know? And so it's really challenged a lot of beliefs or programs that we have, right? And kind of letting that ego down and say, okay, something else that was really huge for me this summer was devoting myself to myself, which is something I haven't done because I'm in service always, right? But then
mm,
we forget about us. And so, adding a meditation practice and a journaling practice and a reading practice that are so fun and fulfilling. And it's really helped me to have clarity through the challenges
mm.
that I've had because this year has felt extremely more challenging than some in the past, but also it provides me with so much clarity for moving forward because, life is an ebb and a flow. And so mine has felt more like an ebb over the last 6 months, but I know all of the work that I'm doing is starting to really show and come to fruition. And so I'm
Yes.
moving into that flow state, right? Where we actually get to, and my word for 2025 is going to be awe. It is awe because I'm constantly in awe of the synchronicities. I was on a podcast talking to this woman with, my mom, had three of us when she was 20, and my dad was a long haul truck driver. And this woman is literally on my podcast saying, my mom had three kids at a very young age, and my father was a long haul truck driver. And I was just like, wait a minute. I've never had this story shared and it was like somebody else is expressing it towards me. And
Yeah.
so I've really just embraced this awe because I think that so often we dismiss the little minutia. I mean, even yesterday I said to myself, I really want a second monitor for my office because it would just help. So I went onto Facebook, didn't really, yeah, okay. So later that night I looked on Amazon. I said, okay, $50 $100, okay. And then I checked Facebook Marketplace again, and there was a monitor that was just listed 5 minutes before for $20 in a Samsung, like a much better, like $300 monitor. And they're in the same
Mm,
town. And I
mm,
was just like, thank you for answering my prayers. And I think that that's really been really important for me to really acknowledge and witness in myself is we often answer other people's prayers at the same time they're answering ours,
ooh,
and that
yeah.
has really another theme for me this year has been, okay, Tiff, you're a great giver, but how are you at receiving? Because if we don't close that circuit, then we're not able to properly give from that. And so understanding that, like, and when I say prayer, it can be in a religious context, it doesn't have to be. But truly, when we talk about what prayer is, it's putting an intention out to the world,
Hmm.
right? It doesn't have to be anything more than that. And so, how often are we answering some? I mean, you and I, we have podcasts, right? So we say yes to somebody and they're like, oh my goodness, I've been waiting for this. We're
Yeah.
constantly answering people's prayers, but I'm more aware to the fact that they are also answering mine.
Hmm. I love that because I've also had so many experiences where there's something that you say that you desire, or you kind of get in touch with this desire, and then the next thing you know, there's the listing on Facebook Market, or there's the post on Facebook that's calling for that one specific podcast guest that happens to be a topic that you can talk about. Or I don't know, it really is crazy, the synchronicities. And I've never thought of it, I've always thought of it in the sense of once you really own your desire, you get what you desire, you're going to receive that. But I've never looked at it in the context of at the same time I am also answering other people's prayers. So I love that.
Yeah,
It's
and I
really
think it just
cool.
opens up a whole new vision for us. And this whole, because we want to be in service to others, right? As human beings, that's generally most people identify with just wanting to give. And so,
Yeah.
in order for us to give, it's to really, really appreciate, it's like the infinity, right? We also have to close that circuit. But knowing
Yeah.
that, like, my hello could be answering somebody's prayer by virtue of I feel unloved. And now here's a
Mm.
total stranger showing them love. Well, okay, you just answered a prayer, and we don't know, we're not privy to the prayers that we answer. So why don't we just go forth in that light, and treat human beings with equitable kindness, right?
Mhm.
Until they show us otherwise. But there's always a place for love. And that has been like a huge theme of mine too, right? Because how can we, how do we love in the midst of strife?
Mm.
Right?
Mhm.
How do we stay in that heart space? And it's, a lot of these things are really simple, but they're not very easy. And it takes these repetitions. So for me to go from, hey, listen, I can send love to my ex, right? Well, that didn't just happen, you know? It's
Yeah.
been years in the making. It's been years of
Mhm.
working on forgiveness. It's been years of understanding what forgiveness is, you know?
Mhm.
And then harmonizing it all together and understanding that, we're all coming from our own experience.
Mhm.
And I think if we could really hold that up, right? Because we often talk about right and wrong. But for me, right and wrong are nothing more than our experience, which determines what's right or wrong. If we grow up in a household that, they talk about other people and very judgmental, right? That may feel very right for us.
Yeah.
And then
It's
I'm coming from a
comfortable.
place,
Yeah.
right? So it
It's all
becomes
you know.
comfortable. It becomes what we know. It becomes, racism, things like that, right? Those are
Mhm.
what we know, and we think other people are wrong and bad. But what if we all just held everybody in the middle and said, well, you're coming from a different experience, as am I. And for me, this is what I know, and you may know something different, but I'm not going to take away what you know.
Yeah. Doesn't the world need to know that right now and feel that?
Yes, yes, yes. And it's so easy for us to diminish somebody else. It's so
Yeah.
easy for us to snap judgments for other people. But I know that we're all doing our best. Our best may look different for everyone, right? But even the people, even the CEOs of companies that are making what we might consider poor choices, they are still doing the best by their experience,
Mm.
right? Because that's what they know. They don't know. I often bring up this example, right? If we, let's say this boy, there's a boy, and he is in an inner city gang. I don't know anything about that, right? I'm grateful I don't know anything about that. But he's about 10. And the only way for this little boy to survive is to take another life. We can all stand and say what we think is right or wrong, but we're not in that little boy's shoes,
Mm. Mhm.
right? And I don't, for me, it's more of just a conversation because I may have my own opinion of it or what my experiences lead me to believe is the best choice. But again, are we in that situation? Well, no, we're sitting on our couch,
Yeah. And
right?
therefore we will never really fully know and understand what it's like to be part of groups that are just systemically oppressed. Yeah.
Right. And so how can we hold people in that space of love? And that feels hard for people. I know that it
For
does.
sure. Yeah.
And I don't think we understand enough about it to quickly just say, no, 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 no.
Mhm.
Because we're all human beings. We all come from the same we're all love. And how do we
Mhm.
hold each other in those other spaces? Now, it doesn't mean we don't have boundaries, right? It doesn't mean we can't say no. It doesn't mean we just give freely of ourselves because we also love ourselves. And if we love ourselves first, well, it really helps all of our other relationships. But so often we live in a world where, no, you need to love that other person first and more, right? I mean, you see it all the time with people on Facebook with their kids. I could eat them, I could squish them. They're, to the moon and back and all of these things, which are great, wonderful things that we want to say to our kids. But how do we embody that vision of love so that it's not in fear, because a lot of times, right, if you go to any Hallmark store and pick out a card for your spouse or your partner, you complete me. You're the missing half of me. No, you're not, right? But we perpetuate this. And so everyone has a really confused idea of how to show love. If we watch Netflix, we're not learning. If we watch the news, we're not learning. Right? If we watch how other people, depending on where you are, that might not be the best vision of it also. So how do we develop that for ourselves without the outside noise? And that can be challenging for us.
Yes, I'd love to dive into that more because I have been noticing that everywhere as a relationship coach that we're not taught how to love. And I'd also like to rewind a little bit and kind of highlight something that you said. You said that part of like something you've been doing this year is that you're divorced and you've been working on like sending love and forgiveness to your ex. And you said something about knowing what forgiveness actually is. I would love for you to speak to what actually is forgiveness, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions where people think forgiveness is one thing. And because they think it's that thing that it isn't, they like hold a grudge and they're just like, I don't know, poisoning their own self because they're just like angry at this person who like isn't even a part of their life anymore
Right.
until they're dead.
Yeah, and we live in a society, and I think that this is part of this perpetuation of you're wrong, period. And I'm going to show you you're wrong in all of the ways that you're wrong,
Yeah, it's
right?
very egocentric.
It
Super
is.
ego.
It
Yes.
is. And I think forgiveness, to truly forgive, is to take the ego out.
Mm.
Because I remember right after we separated and I went to, this was my first like healing experience, and this woman was a medium and she was just so wonderful and gentle and loving, and she's like, you really need to forgive. And I was like, the hell I do? No, thank you. Did you not hear me? Let me rewind. Let me tell you again,
Let
right?
me repeat.
Right. I don't think you heard me. And
Yeah.
so we're so quick to villainize somebody else, but everything in a relationship is a mirror back to us, first and
Mm.
foremost, right? We
Mm-hmm.
call in every experience, every relationship based on our vibrations. And so when we're talking about forgiveness, forgiveness is about releasing that within. It's not about saying to somebody else that I forgive you for cheating on me. I forgive you for stabbing somebody, right? No, no, no. It's not about that. Can I forgive them for me? Because I
Yeah.
need to release that.
Yeah.
And so it's actually a bit selfish in a most beautiful way. And
Mm-hmm.
again, that's one of those words that we've kind of polarized to mean something bad, right? But, when we can stand in forgiveness, let's talk about our parents for a second. Every one of us has
Big one.
parents.
Yeah.
And I can almost guarantee that, like, most of us can look back at our childhood and be like, actually, I didn't feel loved most of my childhood. And your parents could go, wait, what? I don't understand. I took you to your games. I did all of this. I did that. I did this, right? Well, yes. And you did your best. And so we also have to understand, again, going back to that they're doing their best. But can we forgive them for what it is they don't know?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
that's the most important thing. I forgive you for what you don't know, because you don't know that I don't want to receive love back.
Mm-hmm.
How can you tell that when you're a kid? You don't have the words for it. So it
Mm-hmm.
just creates, these energies of feeling unloved or feeling unseen or feeling unworthy. I mean, we can poll America, we could poll the world, and I almost bet every one of us has a wound like that from our childhood,
Yes,
right?
for sure.
And
It's
our
impossible to come out unscathed
right,
because I think it's because the way our society is created, it's not very supportive to raising children. For example, the mere fact that, the average maternity leave, at least in America, is like 12 weeks or something, maybe even less, if you're even lucky to get a maternity leave. And it's just very stressful to provide for a child. And of course, you're not going to be there to be fully present and there. And also, not to mention, like, I don't know if you agree with me or other people agree with me or not, but I don't think that children are meant to be raised just by the couple that made them. Like, I feel like we are supposed to live in a more tribal,
Communal.
collective community, which we don't have right now.
You know, I hadn't thought about it, but as you're saying that, I do. I do because we need more exposure. We need different opinions. We need different
Yeah.
stories and narratives. And, you know, you know, we live with my mom because we, all agreed to share a large house together. And it has its challenges, but most of the time it's wonderful because my daughter now has her grandmother and her cousin and my aunt, my sister, and we've adopted that and it's really quite beautiful. And
Hmm.
so you're right when it comes to that, right? But when we're talking about forgiveness, the most important thing, it's the greatest act of self-love for us to forgive ourselves first.
Yes.
And especially as a parent, right? Because I was just talking about this with a fellow mom. And I said, listen, this was this morning. This woman came into my, anyways, she was really upset and I could just see it. I don't really know her that well. And I'm like, are
Hmm.
you okay? And she's just like, I feel like I have nobody. And she's going on and on, right? And I said, listen, we all as parents, right? We're doing our best. And I think sometimes we sit and go, yeah, but it's not enough.
I
Or,
hear
oh my
that
gosh, I
so
just did
much. I
that.
don't have kids myself, but a lot of my friends do, and like they constantly feel guilty for what they don't do
Right.
rather than
And where
seeing
does,
how wonderful they are.
exactly, and what does guilt provide us? Chaos.
Yeah.
It causes us strife. And we hold guilt because it makes us feel, well, if I feel guilty, then it will somehow alleviate. It doesn't.
It'll make me better next time. It'll like, yeah, for sure.
But try
Which is kind
forgiveness
of
on it.
beautiful because you notice that if you feel guilty, that means you actually genuinely care, you
Yes.
know?
But sometimes
Yeah.
people hold on to it for fear, like as a
Yeah.
fear based tactic, right? Like, well, if I
Hmm.
just stand in remorse or guilt, then it's okay because I need to punish myself. And sometimes
Hmm.
that's what guilt is us punishing ourselves. But to hold ourselves in a place of forgiveness is to say, I know something different now. Oh, I didn't realize my nervous system was engaged when I yelled at my daughter. I know something
Mm.
different. I forgive myself. And guess what? I'm going to go to that little human being and say, whoopsie, I didn't know, but now I know. And I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive me. I always get the name wrong, but it's the Ho'oponopono. It's the Hawaiian.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And
I'm
so,
sorry. I thank you. I love you. I forgive you or something.
yep, it's please forgive me. Thank you.
Honopono? It's a really long word. I
It
don't know what
is.
it
There's a
is
lot of
either.
H. There's one H and a lot of O's and P's.
Yeah.
But it's
Maybe
it's
I should look it
essentially,
up just in
yeah,
case anyone Hawaiian is listening and they're
right.
like, you're
We're not
butchering
giving
it.
it justice.
My next door neighbor, one of them is half Hawaiian, so I'm like,
Oh,
we should
we got to
say
get
it
it right.
correctly. Okay, I'm gonna try. Ho'opon no
Hmm.
pono.
Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono.
That sounds
Hopefully
more.
that's right.
Yeah, that sounds more than what I said. But it's very beautiful, right? It's about asking for forgiveness. But the thing is it's not always about asking somebody else. Ask yourself for forgiveness.
Hmm.
So often we think that we can't forgive because that means that we accept the situation for what it is.
Yeah, that we're like condoning the behavior, or we're like, if it's not about the other person and what they did, if it's more about what you did, then it's like, oh, I'm just like this and this is never going to change. But if you can forgive yourself, you can let it go.
Right? Because we
Yeah.
don't let it go. And all of these energies exist in our bodies. And
Hmm.
then we become so distracted, so separated from our higher self, right?
Hmm.
Because we can't do it. So how do we bring that forgiveness in? Because that's where it starts, is to have that inside and
Hmm.
to allow that for yourself. Because in order for things to work for us, we always need to try it on,
Yeah.
right? We need to try it on. And so how do we try on forgiveness for ourselves? And it's to do it, right? Like, listen, I always say 1% better. We're not here to do 100% better. That kind of sets us up. But can you forgive yourself for something today? Can you just forgive yourself for one thing? Listen, and it's as simple as I didn't know something that I know now.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. I know something different. I
Mm-hmm.
forgive myself. And can we walk away from it?
Mm-hmm.
And it takes courage. It takes time to build that forgiveness muscle. But when you do, you're so much more free inside because there's nothing holding you back.
Yes.
And that's really what we need. And so, how do we forgive somebody? Well, wait a minute. They cheated on me, they left me, and I'm supposed to forgive them? Yes, you are. You're forgiving them for you, you're not forgiving them for
Mm-hmm.
them. And maybe you come to a place where you can't forgive them for them, you know? But there are simple, easy ways for us to start developing this muscle of forgiveness. And it all starts from within. It all starts from within. Because if we're not showing up authentically, we're disconnected from ourselves. And to show up authentically is to say, hey, ego, you're super helpful, but not all the time.
Yeah.
And to just move forward and understand again, if somebody pulls out in traffic, I almost guarantee you they're not like, well, here, Tiffany's coming. I can't wait. Wait, 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 wait. Okay, now. No, no. You didn't see, you
Whenever
didn't
that
know.
happens, I'm like, there could be a lady in there giving birth. Like, I don't know. Like, whatever. Just let him
Right.
go.
You
Because if you
don't
get
know.
angry, like all it's not affecting that person. It's
Mm-mm,
not going to make them stop cutting people off. It's
mm-mm.
just heightening your cortisol or whatever happens chemically in your body when you
Right.
get angry. And I think I'd love to touch on, you mentioned guilt with forgiving yourself. I
Mm-hmm.
think anger really shows up when you're trying to forgive another person. So I'd love for you to talk about like how you have worked through anger and maybe like what anger has taught you.
And anger is one of those emotions that we don't honor
Yeah.
enough, right? And so the number one way to move through anger is to feel it. But so often it feels foreign or we feel wrong or bad for having anger.
Yeah, it can feel dangerous too
Right. And
for some
some
of us.
people, right, for some of us, we don't know how to properly deal with our anger. And
Mhm.
so it can feel like, okay, I don't want to get angry. I don't want to get angry because I cannot control once I get angry. And that usually tends to be what happens.
Mm.
When we hold that all inside, it causes a great amount of disease, guilt. They are all very low vibrating frequencies and emotions. But our emotions are there to teach us, they're there to show us something. And so I always say, how curious can you be? Because if you can be curious to your anger, if you can say hi to your anger, hey, anger, I see you. What can I do? Go for a run real quick? Go for a run. Go jump up and down outside and do that, right? Give it to the earth, give it to the trees, scream into a pillow, clap. Clap is a great way to get rid of negative emotions. Just a simple act of clapping because all of our organs and
Mm.
everything is all in our hands. So
Mhm.
clapping can be super useful. If you notice when people get angry, they often hold their fists like this and slam them.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a little point we can tap right there. There's a reason why, because it's trying to get the energy out. And so
Mm.
if we see anger for what it is, which is trying to move energy, I mean, really any
Yeah, it's
emotion
very
is
outward.
right, right. And so how do we start to develop this little toolbox for ourselves? Right? Because listen, we can say, no, I'm every time I get angry, I'm gonna go jump up and down outside. Right. But if it's raining or you're not outside. So we need multiple things in our toolbox. And also, they don't always all work for the same situations because we have underlying, emotions or our nervous system is engaged, right? And so to feel anger, to honor it and to witness it and to be super curious, to me is the number one way to move through any of our emotions. Especially like we'll get sad and we don't want to cry. We don't want to cry. Can't cry. We can't cry. I say cry. Cry when you feel it. And don't be ashamed
Mhm.
because we move through them. It's when we don't feel them that they become trapped inside of us. And
Mhm.
then we do not get a choice on how they show up again or how they come out because they will. And it could be an anger towards your child, towards your partner, towards your dog in ways that almost surprise us. And they often do. And then we move back to that guilt.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hey, I didn't allow myself in that moment. It's okay. I forgive myself. I know something different now. Now I can move forward. So often we just need to honor. I remember probably about a month and a half. No, it must have been in October. It was in October. It's the end of October. And it was my sister's birthday. And I have a gluten allergy and a dairy allergy. And so we went out to go source her a cake for her birthday. I took my nephew and we went to the bakery that has gluten-free stuff. Well, they didn't. And so I really was like, getting a cupcake, right? So then we go to the store and they didn't really have anything gluten-free, desserty type thing, right? And everyone else was having all of these delicious desserts. And so we had a little fire outside because it was nice out. And I had my arms folded. And I just say to my partner, I'm throwing a tantrum right now. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm throwing a tantrum because I wanted a cupcake and I didn't get the cupcake. And now I'm just mad. And like, I said it out loud to everyone to kind of mirror, to kind of show, to model that, like, it's cool. Just honor
Yeah.
that little kid inside that didn't get the cupcake. It's
Mm-hmm.
cool, right? And so I laughed at myself and I said, I didn't get my cupcake. I'm a little upset. I'm just going to sit here for a second, throw my little tantrum. And I did. Kick my feet a little bit.
I think
And
it's
then I
also
laughed
so
about it.
relatable when you share it out loud. Like, it's such a great way to just connect with the people around you because they're like, oh, yeah, I've been there. That sucks.
Yeah. And this idea that children are the only one that throws tantrums is so not true. That's so not true. I can tell you, if anyone listening here, they can probably in the last week think of a time where they threw a mini tantrum inside. We just know how to handle it
I mean,
better
you
and we
see
have words for
adults
it.
throwing tantrums on the news every day.
Right. Right. When our needs aren't met, same
Yeah.
as a child, we throw tantrums.
Mm-hmm.
They just might show up a little different. But honestly, do they? Probably not. Kids throw things, adults throw things, right? So how do we honor that? And it's really to start to develop that fact that, hey, listen, I'm not perfect. And I'm not trying to be. I'm just showing up every day and learning because we learn something new about ourselves all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can't hold ourselves in that space and place of love, that's where a lot of these other lower, anger, and not that you can't love yourself and have anger, that's not what I'm saying. But when we don't know how to feel the emotions,
Yeah.
because probably no one taught us. And you can also forgive yourself for that. Guess what? I don't actually know how to feel my emotions. And I forgive myself.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also so beautiful to notice that there's love beneath anger and beneath guilt. Like what I mentioned before, like the guilt shows that you really care about doing a good job in terms of mom guilt. And then, like, when you're angry at someone that cheated on you or did something to you, the only reason why you would be angry is if you love that person. Because if you did not care, you wouldn't care enough to be angry.
Right.
So, like, it's cool to see how, like love is a certain vibration, and then these other emotions are usually talked about as being a lower vibration. But I feel like love is like, these are, anger and guilt are proof of love being present. It's like right underneath it.
Yeah. And also there's information there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we can stay in that curiosity, because they're here to teach us, these emotions are here to teach us. And if we're angry at somebody else, are we angry at them? Or are we angry at how it makes us feel? Or are we angry at the situation? And more often than not, a lot of these lower feelings, like the lower vibrating feelings, it's because they've touched a core wound of ours, or they've
Yeah.
touched a wound. Well, why are you upset that some stranger that you don't know and know nothing about just cut in front of you? Well, it makes me feel unseen. And there's your
Mm-hmm.
wound. It makes me feel disrespected. Okay. When was the last time you felt disrespected? When was the first time you felt disrespected? Because those are all the clues in there. And so
Mm-hmm.
we usually tell everyone, we usually say it out loud what our program is or what our wound that they're hitting, but we're not receiving it in that same light.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because we're kind of like maybe disassociated sometimes in
Yeah.
those emotional moments. That's so interesting.
Because we want to tell the other person,
Yeah.
right, that
Yeah. So
they're the
we're
ones
not
that are
also
wrong.
receiving what we are saying. Oh, that's so interesting. I've never thought of that before.
Yes. And we can use that as information because everything that we're going to express outwards, right, is some sort of wound. It's bringing something up.
Mm-hmm.
It's bringing something up. And what is it? Can
Yeah.
we be curious enough to try to understand that? Because your partner not leaving a dish out probably wasn't to you And that's another thing, is we often feel that life is happening to us instead of around us, right?
Yeah.
And so you come home and there's a dish in the dish. No, I've told them 1,000 times, I feel so disrespected. Put it in the dishwasher. But it begs the question, why do they have to meet all of your needs? Why can't that dish be left there? Because I don't know, maybe we forgot. It has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with you. But so
Yeah.
often we're trying to, villainize somebody else. But really, it's about how we feel about that dish. It's not about how the other person feels about that dish. But we take it very personal. We say, no, no, no,
Mm-hmm.
that was to me. They did that on purpose. I know they did that on purpose. You don't know what
Mm-hmm.
you don't know, right?
Are you familiar with the book, The Four Agreements?
I have read that book. Yes, it was
Yeah.
a
I
long,
think
long time ago.
I don't know if it's the first agreement or I don't know if the order matters, but one of them is don't take things personally. Life is not
We,
personal. So I love that you brought
it's
that up.
it's so not. And if we can really understand that, right? And I try to model, for when I'm out in public, really just show people that we can hold each other in a space and place of love, because
Mm-hmm.
it matters. Because so often people don't. There was a woman walking by me today, and all of a sudden she was like, "There's my sunshine," and I was just like, "Hi." I don't know why she called me that, but I don't care, because she's feeling something in me and she didn't look as sunny. And that's
That's
okay,
so
but
cute.
maybe I helped infuse that,
Yeah.
But I don't know anything about her or her day. So her not making eye contact has nothing to do with me, or whatever the scenario is. We often build them in our minds because our ego says, no, 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 wait a second. Wait a second. And as I always say, you really want to focus on the first voice, not the second voice. And I try
Mm.
to teach my daughter this now too. And so I'll say, close your eyes. You don't know what to do. Okay, so I'll ask her a couple questions. What's your favorite color? Purple. First answer that comes to your mind. Just say whatever's on your mind. And then I'll ask the question back. And she'll come up with her answer. Our second answer is usually the ego,
Mm.
the one that says, oh no, 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 you're wrong. Or I can't take that time off because of this. Or I can't get a new job. Or I can't do all of these things because blah, 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 blah. Our ego is very fear based. Our higher self is not.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so the more that we can connect with our higher self, whether it be through nature, whether it be through meditation, whether it be through journaling, whether it be just to devoting yourself to working to be a better person, because it does take work, right? It's not, you can see me now, but you don't know what I've gone through, or B, how much time I've spent on myself, because it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot. It's a lot. And it's okay, because that's my journey. And that's really important for all of us to really understand too. You are on your own journey. I am on my own journey.
Yes.
Child is on their own journey. My partner is on their own journey. Tiff, people pleasing Tiff, prior to this year thought, oh, no, 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 here's what's wrong with you. If you just listen to me, you're going to see what I see. And not in an ego way, but just in a way that's like, you don't see what I see, so you can't know what I know. But if you just listen, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you fix yourself. It's never worked.
Mm.
It's never worked because we can't show somebody else their blind spots or what they're not willing to see. They're always going to come at it when they want. My partner was always like, yoga, we should do yoga. You should try yoga. You're really going to love it. Yoga, yoga, yoga. And I'm like, no, I'm not trying yoga. No, I'm not going to do yoga. Well, about 3 months ago, all of a sudden I saw something on Instagram or who knows what it was. And I said, I think I'm going to try yoga. And now I love yoga, right? But you have to
It is
understand
life
that, like,
changing.
it really is. But you telling me to try yoga might not be
Yeah.
the impetus to me trying yoga. I might need to hear it 7, 8, 9 times. We don't know. And maybe it's not even part of my journey. Healing isn't a part of everyone's journey. Love isn't a part of their journey. Maybe, maybe not, right? But we don't need to show people where they need to go. We only need to stay true to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that will show you who you are on the deepest of level. When you can stay true to yourself and respond to life. Really, we react to life. React is wounds. React is fear. React are all these old programs that we've collected over the years that we don't even really know. But when we react, it's a part of our nervous system. It's a part of that fear. So how can we respond? Just get curious, right? I hear that you're upset. That's so different than, wait a minute, you're not going to yell at me. You're not going to disrespect me, right? They're not doing it to us. So how do
Yeah.
I respond to life
Mm-hmm.
as it happens? Because to me, if I don't respond, I'm just pushing out a force that's going to push back at me. And it doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah, and
So
I think that goes back to this kind of concept we talked about before of like falling deeply in love with yourself. And when you are able to do that, I feel like you're more resourced to be able to respond instead of react, because you're still feeling that same kind of like somatic experience of like your heart beating faster because yelling is happening. But instead of reacting from that place of fear, you're like, okay, I'm like you're basically like in more acceptance of what's happening inside of you, and you can be like, I see you're upset. It changes your like your relationship with yourself, changes your ability to communicate in times of conflict like that.
it
Yeah.
really does. And, so often we want to fill other people's cups because, again, we want to give, we want to do that. But if we haven't filled our own cup, we're actually not able to fill their cup. And it's coming inauthentically. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably fear based, right? Like, again, the attachment that we may have to our partner or our children. If you listen, a lot of times it's actually more fear based than anything else. It's not your
Mm-hmm.
fault, right? It's not your fault. I'm not saying that you should know differently or no, it's just a different perspective. But if we don't fill our cup first, then we're not able to properly fill other people's cups. And so you can show up better for your children, show up better for your partner when you show up better for yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't teach people that. Nobody
We don't
shows
teach
us
that.
that. It's
No.
not modeled for us.
Yeah.
I just actually made a reel because I was journaling. I journal, I light my candle, most of the time. Sometimes I do journaling in the car if that's what I need to do. But I'm still going to get it done because I want to help fill your cup. But I can't do that if my own cup isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a devotion. It really is. But a lot of us don't think that we matter enough or we have the time to do it. But we have the time for what we want to make time for. I mean, that's just real. Like if you all of a sudden, start smoking, you all of a sudden have time for that, right? I mean, you could look at anything, Netflix. We have time for Netflix. We have time for, we have time. We do. How can we just
Mm-hmm.
allowance? Allow ourselves to be, allow ourselves to fill our cup, allow ourselves to forgive, allow ourselves to go with the flow, allow ourselves to connect, right? If we don't work on those things, a lot of them are very fear-based. And it's not your fault. It's not our fault. It wasn't my fault, right? But to witness it and say, okay, we have some work to do. And now when programs come up for me, there was just one that I thought of. I reacted to something and I went, now we get to work on that. And I get really excited about the
Aren't
things when
those
I
so
react.
fun?
Right. Because now I'm like, thank you. Thank you for showing me
Yes.
something that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And then I get to move through that. I get to learn. I get to grow. And that's so powerful for us because we always need these little wins for ourselves. We need that validation for ourselves. And it shows up when we respond and don't react. I normally would have reacted to that and I didn't. So I'm going to give myself a hug because
Mm-hmm.
I did it. Like we need those little wins.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be bold and we have to be curious. I mean, curious is probably one of the best things that we can be for ourselves because it
Yeah.
puts down the guilt.
Yeah, for sure.
Just get
And
curious.
it turns this whole journey of growth and self-love into this fun ride you can be on your whole life.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
when you're curious about one thing and you learn that thing, there's always something else that leads to. Like you'll hear someone say a word where you're like, what does that mean? Like I remember the first time I heard the word sovereignty, I was like,
Mm,
sovereignty, what is that? And like one thing just keeps leading to the next. And that kind of, goes back to what we said before about your prayers are answered as soon as what you're showing up for, as long as you're open to receive it, it'll show up for you to receive it. Yeah, it's very interesting.
right. And if we aren't open to receiving, we won't receive it. And one of the best ways that I can say this is most of us focus on abundance. Abundance is a huge word. Abundance, abundance. I love abundance too. When we think
Mm-hmm.
about abundance, most of us are going to think about money. right?
Yeah.
So we put out into this world, I want more abundance. I deserve more abundance. I need more abundance, whatever it may be. But you're walking down the road and you pass a penny. You even look at it and you say, oh, that's just, but that's the abundance you're asking for. And the
Yeah.
universe will sometimes test us in that way. So can you pick up that penny and say, thank you? Thank you for this penny, and put it in your pocket. I promise you, more abundance will flow. But we need to stay in that gratitude. We need to be thankful. We need to, in order for us to receive, right? We have to say, well, thank you. And I received this, because saying thank you is receiving something,
Mm-hmm.
right? Being grateful for that penny is receiving, well, thank you. I don't know what I did to
Mm-hmm.
deserve this, but I really appreciate this penny and I'm going to put it in my pocket. And then maybe the next time you find a dime, wow,
Mm-hmm.
right? So often we look for these big, grand things. Show me that I'm worthy of this abundance by giving me $1,000,000. And you never get the $1,000,000, right? But you just walked over 4 pennies, you know? And I say that because it's really easy for people to understand. And anyone listening, you're going to find a penny now. And you're going to have a choice. You will have a
Yeah.
choice. And I hope you remember what I said and just say thank you. I'm so grateful I found this penny. Being grateful allows us to not live in those real anger and understand
Mm-hmm.
that it is all a lesson. We're learning right
Yeah.
now. We're
Gratitude is such an
constantly.
abundant practice too. Like I remember I dedicated like 2 consecutive years to gratitude journaling every morning. And now I get to have this journal on my bookshelf that's just like full of gratitude entries.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite book.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
so abundant because once you find one thing, there's another thing. Or you can even go deep on just one item. Like I could go deep on this computer that I'm talking to you on. There's so many things that go into it. They're the people that invented binary code. They're the satellites in the sky. Like there's
Right.
so many things. It's like it really, I think gratitude really is the key to really tapping into and noticing abundance and noticing that abundance is not just money, that it's just like everywhere. It's
Right.
hard to put it into words.
It is. It is. But again, you can exercise that gratitude muscle. And,
Mhm.
because, someone had asked me, well, how do you have that much to write about, to be grateful for? To be honest, I could write in a whole journal of things I'm grateful for if I really wanted to dedicate that time. And it would
Yeah,
be
if our hands never got tired, I could
right.
fill up a whole journal too. I'm just gonna turn
Yeah.
my light on.
And it would be honest and it would be authentic,
Yes.
because there's no boundaries to great. Have you thanked
Mhm.
yourself for breathing? I'm so grateful that I breathe and I don't
Yes.
even have to think about it.
Yes.
Like you
Yeah.
can you can just say, I'm grateful that my legs walk.
Yeah. Even when you say the breathe thing, like I'm immediately thinking about like my heart takes in the oxygen and like spreads it to all of my cells and then it takes the carbon dioxide and then I breathe it out. Like there's so much even in just breathing. Like there's so many, you don't have just one lung, you have two.
Right.
There's so much. There's so
Yeah.
much.
Our bodies are working for us. And that's something that I
Yeah.
often write in my journal. I'm just so grateful for my body, my mind, my
Yeah.
soul, my spirit, my
Yeah.
humor, my voice, right?
Yeah.
We can, if we really want to, we can truly find things to be grateful for. But often we think, well, I didn't receive the $1,000,000, so I'm not grateful. No,
Yeah. I think because our egos like to control things,
right.
whatever goal we set for ourselves, we like, first of all, we think that's what we want, but really we want how we think that $1,000,000 will make us feel. And we have this idea of like how we're going to get there, but like we really don't know how we're going to get there. Or if somewhere along the journey, another desire comes up that's different. And like we just have to be willing to be open to every present moment, within every present moment. Like, yeah, I don't even know if I'm making sense. Whenever
No,
I talk about stuff like this, there's a point where it gets to a point where it's really hard to put this stuff into words, right?
yes, yes, for sure. But I think, it's like when you're a child and you want something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whether you get it or not, you're not sitting here, 40 years later or whatever the case may be going, I never did get that doll. No, you've moved on. We constantly want things, whether we get them or
Yeah.
not, right? We
Yeah.
are wanting beings because there's so much around for us to want.
Mhm.
And we will receive more if we're grateful for what we already have. It's like, when I do, when I'm journaling and I have what I'm working on, right? What I'm manifesting. And every single time in that notebook goes, I am grateful for what I have in this very moment. If nothing were to change, if I wasn't to receive anything that I'm asking or putting forth the energy towards, I'm okay right where I am. And I
Mhm.
love myself right where I am. And
Mhm.
that frees up so much energy because when we want something, it becomes like this energetic cord to it. And if it's something that we can't receive, like I make $100 a week, but I'm going to make 10,000 next month. That might be hard. You might not get there, right?
Yeah.
So how can you reach without overreaching and allow
Mm.
yourself to stay, well, let's just try $500.
Mhm.
Okay, that feels good. And then you get a coupon, $25 off. We often don't think about that. That's part of my income or that's part of my $500. And if we start to look for it, we'll always find it. Same as if we look for all the ways that you're wrong and bad, you'll
You'll
find it.
find them.
Right. So what are you focusing on? Because we always have a choice. We always
Yeah.
have choice.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the like how can we reach without overreaching, because I think too many people, when you make your goal smaller and more bite-sized, accuse you of then being in scarcity.
Mm,
At least I've experienced that, where it's like, why are you lowering your goal? Like you're just giving into the fear. But I think focusing on, I was just talking about this morning with somebody, focusing on that like big mountain that we want can be so overwhelming. And I think it's very easy to just focus on that big mountain and that big goal and hurdle that we're either A, overwhelmed and not doing anything to get there, or B, doing so many things in one day until we're burned out and it's
yeah.
not sustainable, rather
Right.
than focusing on what is the small little stretch for today and the next day and then
Yeah.
the
And it's
next day.
like,
The
it's
one
like,
step.
right. And now we're going into the new year. So we know most
Yeah.
resolutions will be about losing weight. That's what happens. And you say to somebody, well, how much weight do you want to lose? Okay. Most of us aren't saying 5 pounds. You could look at somebody and say, well, I want to lose 100 pounds. Right.
Mhm.
That seems hard.
Mhm.
And we often will say, no, my goal is 100 pounds. Oh, I only lost 2. And I'm like, why? We forget to
Yeah,
celebrate.
you're on the way. Like the momentum is
Correct.
happening. Yes.
Right. And if we don't
Huh?
celebrate those little things, like again, I'm looking for a $500 month. I just got, let's just say I had to buy something and they gave me $300 off. Well, could that be part of that? Wow, thank you. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. We need those ways that proof because we're always looking for it. And just the
Mhm.
same as we're like, well, I'm never going to get my $10,000 month. I'm never going to do it. You're not, right? But if you say, I want a $10,000 month next year. So I'm going to start with 1,000. Okay. I got 1,000. Now I'm going to work on 2,000 and focus on all of the ways that you are receiving it. Not just here is money,
Mhm.
right? Did somebody buy you dinner unexpectedly?
Mhm.
Well, you didn't take from your pocket, right? There's so many ways that we can feel like it's working. And that's often what we need because in order for us to go forward, we need the momentum. But we need the proof. We're always looking for proof. We're living a proof filled world. But if we don't pay attention to the penny,
Mhm.
we're missing that proof. So we're going to take other proof that, well, we're not worthy of that. Or, oh, I'm so stupid. I should have known. It doesn't work. Nothing works, right? Instead of saying I found a penny, I'm not any of those things. I'm
Mhm.
wonderful. I'm beautiful. And it's working. I'm in awe that I just found a penny.
Yeah, because not only is that proof of the momentum, when you celebrate those little things, that creates more momentum.
Yes.
Celebration is a huge part of my coaching, like with my one-on-one clients. I start every call with celebrations, and I really find that celebrating ourselves is very hard for a lot of women.
Yeah.
when you take it on as a practice, it's very similar to gratitude, but it's different because it also invites you into bragging about yourself, which usually has a negative connotation
Mm-hmm.
to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Instead of just
I'm
saying it's what I
looking
know.
at the time and I'm like, how have we talked for 52 minutes already?
I know. This is, yeah, it's really been a beautiful
This
conversation, and
flew by.
it really did. It really did.
Do you have any thoughts to add on to what I just said before I ask you some closing questions?
We need to celebrate for sure. And we need to
Mm-hmm.
show other people that it's okay to celebrate, because we
Yeah.
need to unburden the women around us. And the way to do
Yeah.
that is to become authentic within. And it will only show them that they have permission to do the same thing. And so if somebody, I sent an email out because I'm looking, for collaborations. And she said, I can't. I have too much on my plate. And I said, I am celebrating you.
Yes, I love that.
Wholly, instead of being like, I knew they weren't going to say yes, or they're
Yeah.
probably just saying that because my program isn't what they want. No, I'm like, heck yeah, I'm
Yes.
celebrating that for you. I think that that's amazing that your schedule is so full. And I mean that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean that because I'll find the perfect person. They'll come to
Mm-hmm.
me because I'm going to be a match. That's not arrogance. That's not anything. It's we, the law,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we need to celebrate each other. We really do. We really, really do. As soon as we came on, I asked you how your trip was because we had talked before that.
Yeah.
I'm celebrating that you just took this wonderful trip instead of saying, she got to go on a trip. Good for her. Must be nice. No,
And it feels so genuinely good after you have like practice celebrating not only for yourself, but it feels so good when you notice that you genuinely feel the celebration for the other person.
right.
Especially if it's like a goal that you want to, and you notice, like, wow, I'm actually really happy for this person that they got that, instead of being like jealous or comparing myself or, yeah, feeling guilty that I'm not there yet. Like, it feels so
Right.
good to be like, I genuinely, truly am so happy for this person. It's
It
really cool.
really,
It's again
it
one of
is.
those feelings that's hard to explain in words.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But try it on because it feels really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask you two closing questions and then we'll get into where people can find you and connect with you. The first one is, what does self love mean to you?
Self love is love for everyone else.
Love for what? I didn't hear the end.
Everyone else.
For everyone else.
Because when we wholly and completely love ourselves, we shine.
Mm-hmm.
We shine. And other people see it. And we become that loving force or energy or vibration for others just by being in your presence. Because we all know what it feels like to be around somebody who doesn't love themselves.
Yeah.
How can you be that person that loves themselves? That doesn't, say, Tiffany, you always do that. You're bad. You're wrong. So, I don't know here. It's cool. I'll get it better next time, right? It feels really hard to do it first, but I promise you, if we can change that narrative and love ourselves, all of our relationships will shift. They will. They can't
Yeah.
not. And so often, again, we focus on the outside world, but self love is the deepest invitation to go inwards, to come home. That's what self love is to come home, to be found.
Yeah. Yeah. It also makes me think of how this like separation of I versus everyone else is just an illusion. I feel like that's also a truth that really comes up after you've been practicing spirituality for a while. You really notice how like everything is one. And so, in not like, especially for the people listening who are people pleasers or like really love to give to others and not to themselves, it's actually hurting the other people when you don't love yourself, because we are all one. Like, when you don't love yourself, it doesn't only affect you, it affects everyone that is in your life. And it's not to say that you're wrong or that you're doing it on purpose. It's just something that happens as an outcome. And I think it happens because we are always being led back to love, because that's where we're supposed to be. Like, that's like our equilibrium. We are also supposed to feel all the other feelings. However, always coming back to that love, like not staying in the anger or staying in the guilt. Always coming back to love in between those moments.
That's right. Nature is the greatest experience of love that you can find. I
Mm,
mean, most people feel so connected when they're at the ocean or in the forest.
yeah.
Whatever it is, that's how you can understand love. To me, that's love, is to
Mm-hmm.
spend time in nature. It doesn't have to be the way I do it. Do it the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
But flowers are the most loving thing. Honeybees are loving. Trees are loving, right? And they're just there. They're just there.
Yeah.
There they are for us.
Okay. This question is my absolute favorite question to ask people, to ask women. What is your favorite part about being a woman?
I love that. I love that so much. I think, being a woman is, we're asked to do so much, right? But for me, it's really being that beautiful model. It's for me, being a woman is also understanding that masculine side of me and embracing the heck out of it
Mm,
and allowing the femininity within me and understanding that they're not labels,
mm-hmm.
right? And so being a woman is, it's also, I got to have my daughter. So, I mean, that's the real answer, right? But no, I mean, honestly,
I
being a
didn't
woman
really hear what
is,
you said.
I said I got to have my daughter, right? I got to have her. But being a woman is, to me, it's just, I don't even know if I have words for it. It's,
Yeah.
it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful to feel. It's so beautiful to be. It's so beautiful to exist. It's just beautiful. And I know that that sounds redundant, but I don't know that I have anything else to say about it.
That's
I
totally
just
okay. I
embrace
love it.
it.
I love this answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for the people listening and watching, where can they find you? How can they work with you? Tell us all the things of what you're up to.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So my website is Heart and Soul Healing because I don't think that we can heal if we don't have our heart and our soul in order for it to be ready to do that. So it's Heart and Soul Healing. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I post a lot of reels, just because, again, I'm hoping I'm answering some. I know that I am, right? And that's not an ego thing. But maybe that one thing that I say is the one thing that makes you do yoga or invites you on your journey to see anger in a different light or whatever the case may be. I do energy healing. And so, you can also, I have packages on my website for energy healing. And really, right now, I think what I'm being called to do is to help be this bridge for people. And so I'm right now developing a really cool membership program where we have soulful seekers, right? Because most of us are on a journey and we want to heal and we don't know how. And it feels so big and there's so many modalities. And so it's this membership where we'll have dedicated healers and the seekers. And how do we provide an easy way for you to learn more about these different modalities and try them on. They'll be hosting master classes and all sorts of really cool stuff. Just journal prompts or just being in the vibration of the membership will help you. I mean, that's a real thing. And so it'll probably be live within the next month, which I'm super excited for. And so
Nice.
that's really what I mean by this bridge, and helping other healers, connecting other healers with other people and other just humans. I care so much. I really do. And we all need to heal our wounds and our programs. And I am more than happy to guide you through that. And also, if it's not me, that's okay. Find who is for you.
Mm,
Find who is for you. And it will constantly change. It will shift. You'll be called to different things at different times.
yeah.
Just be open. Just be open. I do a lot of speaking engagements. I have my own podcast, which you were a guest on, The Alchemy of Abundance. And, as much as I'm just here to spread love.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that too, like, again, going back to love, like, love is beneath everything.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
Not to sound like a hippie, but like
Right.
all you need is love.
It's cool. Hippie it up.
I love it.